You ever have one of those nights where every instinct in your body screams that something's about to go horribly wrong? That was me standing in the rain, jaw clenched so tight it hurt, staring at over 20 cars jammed into my private lot like sardines. One of them had even broken the lock to my warehouse to park inside and keep dry. I remember thinking, this is it tonight, someone's going to regret crossing the wrong guy. My name's Jack Turner. I run a small shipping company out in the suburbs of Springdale. Been here nearly 10 years. Good area, blue-collar folks, honest business. Never had an issue with anyone. Until the HOA moved in next door. They built this brand new community center right beside my property. Looked harmless at first, some shiny sign, a few cars on meeting nights. But it didn't take long for them to start treating my lot like their personal parking garage. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding. People just needed a few extra spaces. Right, I tried to be neighborly. I walked into one of their meetings one evening, introduced myself, and explained politely that my lot was private, clearly marked with big red "No Parking Tow Away Zone" signs. The room went silent. Then their president, Cheryl Benson, a woman with a sharp suit and sharper smirk, looked me dead in the eye and said, "We'll take that under advisement." Under advisement. Like she was a senator and I was her assistant. The room chuckled. That was my first warning. This woman wasn't just entitled, she thought she owned the place. I let it slide. Once. Twice. 3 times. I thought maybe they'd get the message. But each month, the same thing happened. Their meetings got bigger, their events louder, and my lot fuller. My employees were forced to park on the street while HOA members strutted across my pavement like they built it. I added more signs. I even installed a chain across one side. A week later, the chain was gone, cut clean. That was when I realized this wasn't ignorance. It was arrogance. Then came the night that pushed me over the edge. It was storm season. Heavy thunder, roads flooding. I had shipments to send before morning or I'd lose a major client. I drove to my warehouse around midnight and stopped dead in the rain. The lot was packed again, but this time the warehouse door was wide open. Someone had broken the lock. Inside were 6 sedans lined up neatly between my pallets of inventory like they were in some underground garage. I just stood there for a second, soaked, speechless. Then I felt it, that slow, burning anger crawling up from your gut until your whole body shakes. I wanted to scream, to drag every last one of them out by their collars, but instead I did something better. I called a towing company, gave them the address, told them to bring every truck they had. When the first tow hook clanked in the rain, it was music. I sat in my truck headlights on, watching as one after another of those shiny SUVs disappeared into the storm. By the time the last one went, a few neighbors had come running out in slippers, waving flashlights, yelling that it was an emergency. I didn't answer, didn't even roll down the window. I just watched. When it was done, I relocked my warehouse, this time with a steel bar, and went home drenched but strangely calm. For once, I'd taken my space back. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, still half asleep. "Mr. Turner, this is the police. We've received reports of stolen vehicles from your property." I almost choked on my coffee. "Stolen," I said. "Officer, you might want to look up the word trespassing instead." I explained everything, showed them the photos, the signs, the broken lock, even handed over the tow company's number. The officer was polite, almost apologetic. "Looks like you did everything by the book, sir." That felt good, for about a week. Then the phone rang again, this time the devil herself. Cheryl Benson. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Jack," she said, "the HOA board has decided to take legal action. We'll be expecting you to reimburse every resident for their towing fees." I laughed out loud. "Cheryl, you should be thanking me for not pressing charges for breaking and entering." Her tone changed. "Our community owns a portion of that lot. We have documentation." "Right. And I own the moon." I hung up before she could finish and called my lawyer. If they wanted a war, they were going to get one. The weeks that followed were brutal. Letters, threats, notices taped to my door. There were nights I couldn't sleep, lying awake, wondering if maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I should have just let it go. Was towing them all really worth the headache? But every time doubt crept in, I remembered that broken lock, those cars inside my warehouse. Cheryl's smug smile when I tried to reason with her. No, I hadn't gone too far. They had. By the time the court date arrived, I was ready. My lawyer and I brought everything: blueprints, business licenses, photos, timestamps, the works. When Cheryl walked into that courtroom, she looked like she was stepping onto a stage. Perfect hair, beige power suit binder in hand, thick enough to choke a horse. Her little entourage of board members followed like ducklings. She stood there spinning lies with that same icy confidence. Claimed the HOA had partial ownership of my property. Claimed I'd harassed community members. Even accused me of entering their building without permission, referring to the time I attended their public meeting. My lawyer waited until she was done. Then he started laying out the facts. The warehouse had been there for 9 years. The HOA barely 2. The property lines were registered, certified, and crystal clear. Every no parking sign had a dated photo showing it was installed long before their community center existed. Then came the photos, the ones from my security cameras. Cheryl's people cutting through my chain, her members walking into my warehouse with umbrellas, cars parked between my shipment crates. The judge leaned back in his chair, exhaling slow. "Mrs. Benson," he said finally, "it appears Mr. Turner exercised his rights entirely within the law." Her face tightened. He continued, "The court finds no wrongdoing on his part. Your claim for damages is dismissed. In fact," he paused, flipping through the paperwork, "the HOA will reimburse Mr. Turner for towing expenses and lost business revenue." For a second, the whole room was silent. You could hear a pin drop. Then Cheryl's lawyer leaned over and whispered something to her, but she didn't move, just stared straight ahead, jaw twitching. And me, I sat there feeling that slow wave of satisfaction wash over me. Not joy, not even triumph, just relief. Justice, pure and simple. It didn't end there, though. That ruling cracked open more than Cheryl expected. Turns out the HOA had been mishandling community funds, skimming fees, even approving construction projects without permits. Once the audit started, it was a domino effect. Within 3 months, Cheryl was forced to resign, and the entire HOA dissolved. Last I heard, her house went up for sale to cover legal costs. Haven't seen her since. And honestly, I don't care to. These days, business is quiet again. My employees have their spots back. The warehouse doors stay locked, the lot stays clear. But the whole thing changed me. Before I thought keeping the peace meant staying polite, avoiding conflict. Now I know some people don't understand polite. They only understand consequences. So now, whenever I scout for a new location, I always ask the same question first. Is there an HOA nearby? If the answer's yes, I keep driving. Because sometimes the only way to protect what's yours is to stand your ground, even if it means towing away 20 cars in the middle of a storm. Lesson learned. Respect goes both ways, but only if you're willing to demand it.